I want you to listen to me very carefully, because what I'm about to say may challenge everything you believed about your struggles, your failures, and your mental state. There are two kinds of people in this world. Those who go through life defeated, tired, complaining, surviving one day at a time. And those who stand tall in the face of adversity, smile when others break, rise when others quit, and win. The difference: it is not intelligence, it is not luck, it is not education. It is what I call a positive mental attitude. And let me be clear, this is not just thinking good thoughts. This is not surface level optimism. This is not plastering a smile on your face when your soul is breaking. No, positive mental attitude is a spiritual power. It is the ability to see through the fog of difficulty and still act with faith, precision, and purpose. It is the only known antidote to failure, and it is the foundation of all lasting success. I spent over 25 years interviewing the most powerful men of our time: Carnegie, Ford, Edison, Rockefeller. Men who built empires not because life was easy, but because they developed this indestructible mindset. They did not fear failure. They invited it. They did not surrender to setbacks. They studied them. They did not collapse under pressure. They learned to transmute defeat into success. And so can you. But first, let me ask you something. What is controlling your mind today? Is it fear, doubt, self-pity, resentment? Or is it faith, purpose, gratitude, desire? Because the mind does not remain neutral. It is always under the influence of something. If you do not direct it, the world will. If you do not master it, the devil will. That is a truth I discovered when I finally confronted my greatest enemy, myself. Listen to me now. Your mental attitude is the only thing over which you have complete, unchallenged, and unchallengeable control. You can control it if you wish. That truth will either set you free or offend your excuses. Because what you believe, you become. What you think about, you attract. What you dwell on, you eventually live out. You say, but I've tried to stay positive and life keeps hitting me. Then I ask you, what is your definiteness of purpose? Because no man can develop a strong mental attitude without a goal so burning, so consuming, so magnificent that even failure trembles in its presence. Show me a man without a purpose, and I'll show you a man who drifts. And the drifter, my friend, is always in the devil's control. But show me a man who knows what he wants, who wakes up with fire in his belly and vision in his mind, and I'll show you a man who cannot be broken. To develop an unbreakable, positive mental attitude, you must first decide exactly what you want. Believe without wavering that you will achieve it. Act daily in harmony with that belief. No excuses, no waiting for motivation, no depending on outside circumstances. Let me say something most will never tell you. The world does not owe you encouragement. The universe does not pause to comfort your weakness, but it will always reward definiteness backed by faith. When a man decides that he will not quit, that he will not surrender to negative thinking, and that his mind is his, not his enemy's, then something magical happens. He begins to attract what he needs. People appear. Opportunities emerge. Strength he never knew he had begins to flood him. And failure? Failure begins to fear him. But this transformation only begins when you understand this next secret. Negative thoughts are not visitors, they are invaders. If you tolerate them, they will take over your home, your mind. If you entertain them, they will eat your purpose from the inside. And if you let them linger, they will convince you to quit on the very thing God placed you here to achieve. So you must do what I call cosmic housekeeping. Take inventory of what you think. Monitor your inner speech. And when you catch your mind drifting toward fear, doubt, worry, resentment, stop it like you would a criminal at your door. Replace it with gratitude, with faith, with the voice of power that says, I was not born to be broken. I was not created to be weak. I am made of the same substance that built mountains, that formed galaxies, that breathes through the lungs of champions. Now let me address the biggest lie that keeps people weak. I'm just not a positive person. Rubbish. You were not born positive or negative. You were conditioned. Your environment trained you. Your experiences shaped you. But nothing is set in stone unless you let it be. What has been learned can be unlearned. What has been programmed can be rewritten. The key is repetition. You become what you repeatedly do. You believe what you repeatedly say. And your attitude will reflect the dominant thoughts you entertain over time. So if you want to develop an unbreakable mental attitude, you must start with this. Control your input. Feed your mind daily with faith, courage, and truth. Speak power even when you feel pain. Read the words of greatness until they burn inside you. There is no shortcut. There is no hack. But there is a path. And it begins with one decision. That no matter what life throws at you, your attitude is yours. Not your enemies. Not your critics. Not your pasts. Yours. And that, my friend, is the beginning of power. If you want to develop an unbreakable positive mental attitude, then you must understand the power of autosuggestion. What is autosuggestion? It is the method by which your subconscious mind becomes the soil for either weeds or fruit. Whatever you repeatedly say to yourself, whether truth or lie, your mind accepts, absorbs, and ultimately believes. Your success is always preceded by a conversation. Not with someone else, but with yourself. Your inner dialogue is either an architect of greatness or a silent assassin of dreams. The man who rises daily and says, I will win, I will persist, I will not be denied, begins to shape his reality through the sheer momentum of mental faith. The man who wakes up and says, nothing ever works for me. I'm tired, I can't do this. That man dies before he even leaves his bed. Whatever the mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve. But belief must be forged daily through repetition. It is not enough to hope once. You must condition the mind like a muscle daily, intentionally, ruthlessly. Take 5 minutes each morning to speak life into your purpose, not passively, not softly, with fire, with strength, with clarity. Say, I am powerful beyond measure. My purpose burns stronger than my fear. I attract exactly what I need because I expect nothing less. You may not feel it at first. That's normal. The subconscious is not changed by feelings. It is changed by repetition with emotion. Say it again, and again, and again, until the voice of victory becomes louder than the voice of doubt. Now let's go deeper. An unbreakable attitude is also impossible without self-discipline. You cannot master your emotions if you cannot master your habits. You cannot hold a positive vibration if you are held captive by negative rituals. Discipline is the bridge between thought and reality. Without it, your good intentions are dreams, and your destiny is delayed. The men I studied, Carnegie, Hill, Edison, Schwab, they did not rise on talent alone. They rose because they governed themselves. They understood that the man who cannot control his thinking, his time, his appetites, is a slave in a world designed for kings. So I ask you, what do you tolerate that weakens your spirit? What distractions do you invite that delay your progress? What comforts do you cling to that rob your future? An unbreakable mental attitude is not born in comfort. It is born in discipline under pressure. It is forged when you say, I will read instead of scroll. I will rise instead of sleep. I will speak power instead of complaint. Because every time you choose discipline over impulse, your inner strength grows. And every time you surrender to ease, your potential dies a little more. Now let's talk about perhaps the most vital truth I discovered after years of studying success and failure. Every adversity carries with it the seed of an equal or greater benefit. If you truly believe that, you can never lose. You may bleed, you may fall, you may suffer, but you will never be broken. because you'll know this is not the end, it is the test before elevation. Look back on your own life. The greatest lessons didn't come in comfort, they came in collapse. The greatest clarity didn't come when things were easy, it came when the storm hit and you had to decide whether to drown or rise. So I say to you, develop the habit of expecting the good in the bad. Train your mind to say, this pain is preparing me. This failure is redirecting me. This delay is protecting me. And what happens? You become unshakable, you become dangerous to defeat. Because life can't hurt a man who grows stronger every time he is hit. Now, let me reveal another core teaching from my life's work. You are never a victim of circumstance. You are only ever a victim of your response. Two men can face the same setback. One becomes bitter, the other becomes better. The difference? Mental attitude. When life slaps you across the face, you get to decide, will I curse it or will I bless it as the teacher that it is? When someone betrays you, you get to decide, will I become resentful or will I become wiser and stronger in boundaries? You cannot control what happens, but you always control what it becomes. This is the great secret of positive mental attitude. It doesn't remove difficulty, it redefines it. It doesn't stop the storm, it teaches you how to walk through it with purpose. Now let me warn you, there will be people who hate your mindset. They will mock your optimism. They will call you delusional, unrealistic, or naive. Ignore them. Most people are addicted to mediocrity. They've made a habit of hopelessness. They are threatened by anyone who dares to rise while they've made comfort with crawling. You must cut off mental infection at the source. Surround yourself only with those who speak life. Avoid those who feed your fear. Tell me who your enemies are, and I will tell you who you are becoming. But also, tell me who your friends are, and I will tell you the limits of your future. Environment is stronger than will. If you spend your time in darkness, don't expect your mind to shine. You must choose carefully what you allow to influence your attitude, because what enters your ears enters your spirit. Finally, let me leave you with this truth. You do not need permission to develop this power. You do not need a degree, a title, or approval. You need only one thing, a decision. A decision to own your thoughts. A decision to lead your mind instead of being led. A decision to become the kind of person that nothing can break because your attitude refuses to surrender. If you make that decision today, if you say, from this moment forward, I no longer rent my attitude to circumstance, I own it, I lead it, I protect it, then you are already halfway to greatness. Because the world bends to the will of those who stand tall in spirit even when the body is weary. Stand tall, my friend. Now, let us now finish this. You've made it this far. That tells me something about you. It tells me you're no longer content to merely survive. You want to master life, and mastery begins in the mind. The final layer of building an unbreakable positive mental attitude is this. You must have a chief definite aim. Without purpose, the mind drifts. Without a burning goal, the mind wanders like a leaf in the wind, pushed and pulled by fear, doubt, distraction, and weakness. You must anchor your mind to something greater than comfort. You must wake up every day with a reason so powerful, so vivid, so personal, that nothing can shake it out of you, not fear, not failure, not fatigue. Your definite chief aim is not just a goal, it is your identity in action. It is who you are becoming, directed by vision and sustained by obsession. Every man I ever studied who rose to greatness, every one had this. They didn't kind of want it, they didn't hope for it, they lived it. Their purpose was not something they did, it was something they became. Ask yourself, what do I want so badly that I am willing to suffer for it? What do I crave so deeply that I am willing to be misunderstood, ridiculed, doubted, and even alone to achieve it? What kind of life would make me feel that every breath I took was worth the pain it cost? Once you have that, burn it into your subconscious. Read it aloud morning and night. Feel it as already done. Speak it with emotion. Write it in stone, because vague desires produce vague results. But clarity commands the universe. And once you are clear, once your purpose is fixed in your mind like the North Star, your positive mental attitude will become not just your shield, but your sword. Now listen to me carefully. The man who has a purpose and protects his mental attitude becomes unstoppable. He may be delayed but never denied. He may fall but always rises. He may struggle but never retreats. Why? Because he understands that attitude is the hinge upon which the doors of destiny swing. Your attitude determines whether a failure becomes fuel or your finish, whether a loss becomes a lesson or a lifelong excuse, whether a hardship becomes your downfall or your rise. But you must protect that attitude like a warrior guards his sword. You must defend it from negative influence. This includes toxic people, poisonous media, and your own inner critic. Mental laziness. This includes gossip, self-pity, and any thought that lowers your energy. Victim thinking. No matter what life throws at you, take responsibility. Own it, shape it, rise from it. Never let another person or situation decide the meaning of your life. That power is yours alone. Now allow me to speak directly to your heart. As a man who spent his life studying the greats and lifting the forgotten, you are not here by accident. You were created with a purpose. You have something the world needs. Your very existence is proof that your destiny is real. But it will not manifest if your mind is filled with fear, self-doubt, and excuses. Your job is to cleanse your inner world, feed your mind the words of greatness, read biographies of giants, speak affirmations, take bold action, and above all, think thoughts that lift, expand, empower, and direct you forward. Every time you do, you grow. Every time you allow fear to control your mind, you shrink. Growth or decay, that is the choice, every single day. Now let me give you a rule that has never failed me. Act as if it were impossible to fail. I don't say this lightly. I say it because fear has stolen more dreams than failure ever could. The fear of failure keeps men small. The anticipation of defeat is often more powerful than defeat itself. But what happens if you remove the possibility of failure? What if you say, I cannot fail, I can only learn, I cannot lose, I can only adjust, I cannot break, I can only bend and bounce back stronger? That, my friend, is power. That is the seed of an unbreakable mind. Because you no longer hesitate. You move. You speak. You create. You command. And in that commanding fear runs, doubt flees, and the world responds. Because confidence is magnetic. Certainty is rare. And those who possess both become leaders by spirit, not just by title. Now hear me well. No man ever succeeded alone. But no man succeeded who waited for others to believe in him first. You must believe when others laugh. You must stand when others sit. You must speak when others mock. You must lead, even if you are still becoming what you speak of. Because the world will follow those who dare to be mentally invincible. So let me summarize what you now possess if you dare to live it. A mind that sees opportunity in every obstacle. A voice that speaks power into the soul daily. A purpose so clear, so consuming that fear has no room to breathe. A discipline so consistent that weakness becomes irrelevant. And a mindset so positive, so unshakable that the gates of hell cannot stop your progress. This is not fantasy. This is the law. These principles are eternal. They work for Carnegie. They work for Edison. They work for Ford. And they will work for you if you work them. So the question is not, will they work? The question is, will you? Will you rise and claim your attitude daily? Will you speak with strength even when your circumstances are weak? Will you persist when everything in you wants to quit? Because if you do, then not only will you build success, you will build a life worth living. a life of depth, a life of greatness, a life that impacts generations long after your name is spoken. That is the power of an unbreakable, positive mental attitude. And it is yours now, if you decide. So I ask you as your guide, as your mentor, and as a man who gave his life to the study of success, will you decide? Because in that moment of decision, your destiny begins. And from this day forward, let your every thought, every word, every action declare to the world, I am unshakable, I am unstoppable, I am unbreakable. And so it is. If you're seeing these signs, it means one powerful truth. You're already walking the path toward wealth. Not the kind of wealth measured only in currency, but the kind of wealth that begins in the mind, where all riches are born. And understand this, every great fortune, every meaningful success, every legacy left behind by a masterful man began first as an unseen seed, buried not in soil, but in the subconscious. If you are seeing these signs, it means that seed is beginning to grow. The first sign that you are on the path to wealth is the growing discomfort with mediocrity. You feel it now more than ever. Where once you tolerated the routines of ordinary life, now they disturb you. What once felt acceptable, clocking in without purpose, spending money without direction, surrounding yourself with distractions, now feels unbearable. This is not frustration. This is awakening. The mind is rejecting what no longer fits your identity. It is casting out the habits, the people, the beliefs that kept you poor, not just financially, but spiritually, mentally, emotionally. Wealth begins when you start to say, this is not who I am. That's the first turning point. You're no longer impressed by appearances. You're no longer entertained by small talk. You want strategy. You want substance. You want freedom, not through luck, but through intention. This hunger is a signal that you've crossed a threshold. You are beginning to walk with the posture of a man who has decided, and once a man decides, the universe moves to meet him. Another sign is your intolerance for wasted time. Time, you now understand, is the currency of the wealthy. The poor spend it. The average trade it for pleasure. But the wealthy invest it. Every second becomes a brick in the construction of your future. You no longer live for the weekend, you live for your vision. You have learned that an hour spent building is worth more than a year spent wishing. And because you've seen this truth, you begin protecting your time like treasure. You say no more often now. Not out of arrogance, but alignment, because every no to distraction is a yes to destiny. You've become allergic to idle conversation, unnecessary scrolling, mindless entertainment. You are no longer available to people who drain your spirit and dull your edge. You understand that energy is sacred and attention is wealth. The man who can control his attention will always control his outcomes. And you have begun to master your attention. That is another sign. Where others are reactive, you are intentional. Where others consume, you create. Where others chase, you attract. Because you are no longer scattered, you are focused, and focus is the hammer that breaks the chains of poverty. When a man is focused, he cannot be manipulated, he cannot be distracted by comparison. He walks with direction. And the man with direction is always wealthier than the man with confusion, regardless of how much is in his bank account. You have also started thinking long-term. That's another sign. You no longer live in emotional impulse. You have begun to build systems. You have begun to think in years, not days. You don't just chase income, you build infrastructure. You are building assets. Assets of character. Assets of skill. Assets of value. You have become the kind of man who says, how will this pay me in 5 years? Instead of, how does this make me feel today? And that shift, small as it may seem, is the foundation of empires. You see money differently now. That's a mark of growth. Where once you feared money, now you respect it. You understand that money is a servant, not a master. You understand that money is an amplifier, not a savior. And most importantly, you now see money as the result of value, not just effort. You stopped trading your hours for dollars and started multiplying your value through leverage, through ideas, through systems. That is wealth consciousness. Wealth is not a number, it is a mindset. And your mindset is no longer poor. Poor minds blame, complain, and wait. Wealthy minds create, solve, and act. You stop blaming your background. You stop waiting for permission. You stop looking for signs from the outside. You are now the sign. You are now the one who moves first. You are now the one who says, it starts with me. That is power. And power precedes prosperity. Another sign you are walking the path to wealth. You are now obsessed with growth. You are reading more, learning more, asking deeper questions, listening to conversations that stretch you. You are replacing gossip with mentorship. You are replacing complaints with commitments. You are replacing theory with execution. And that execution, even when imperfect, is producing momentum. Momentum is the greatest asset of the man pursuing wealth. Not speed, momentum. Because speed fades, but momentum builds. Every disciplined day you stack, every focused hour you complete, every hard choice you follow through with adds weight to your character. And weight creates gravity. People feel it. Opportunities feel it. And when the world senses your seriousness, it responds. You are becoming serious now. Not serious in mood, but in mission. You smile more, not because life is easier, but because you are aligned. You no longer panic when things go wrong. You stop making excuses. You don't talk about goals the same way. You walk like someone who expects to win. You carry yourself like a man who has already been there in his mind. You see, every wealthy man I've ever studied had one trait in common. They walked in advance of their results. They didn't wait for success to show up before acting like they were worthy. They moved like the money was already promised. They planned like the vision was already real. And now you do the same. You visualize in the morning. You speak victory over your life. You guard your words because you know words create. Your language is changing. That's a powerful sign. You no longer say I can't, maybe, or hopefully. You say I will, I am, and it's done. You've erased doubt from your vocabulary. You've stopped repeating failure stories. You've made your voice a tool for prophecy. You're now narrating your future with precision. And when a man controls his language, he controls his reality. Your circle is changing too. Another sign. You are outgrowing conversations. You are leaving behind comfort-driven communities. Not because you're better, but because you're building something bigger. And the bigger your vision, the tighter your circle must be. You understand that proximity is power and poverty is contagious. So you have begun to place yourself in rooms where excellence is the baseline. You've learned that you don't need to be the smartest man in the room. You just need to be in rooms where smart men are talking. You have become a student of wealth, not just of income, but of principle, of energy, of legacy. You are no longer just looking for how to make money. You're building a philosophy, a system, a code, and that code is carrying you forward. Another sign you are walking the path. Adversity no longer breaks you. It builds you. Where once you folded under pressure, now you grow. You understand that every obstacle is training. You have stopped resenting failure and started learning from it. You don't avoid pain, you alchemize it. You extract the wisdom. You use it as fuel. And because of that, you move through trials with grace. That is the mark of someone being prepared for great wealth. Because wealth requires a strong container. And that container is character. If you are seeing these signs, it means your character is expanding. You are becoming responsible with your word. You are finishing what you start. You are showing up even when the feeling is gone. You are becoming the kind of man who can be trusted with more. And trust always precedes transfer. That's the spiritual law. When you can be trusted, wealth finds you, because wealth is energy, and energy flows to structure. When you build a structure through habits, vision, service, and consistency, the energy of abundance begins to move, Not because you manipulated the system, but because you became the system. You have become the system now. You are no longer guessing, you are executing, you are no longer hoping, you are building. And that, my friend, is the clearest sign of all. You are on the path to wealth. There is a moment in every man's journey when he begins to feel the shift, not because of what he has, but because of who he is becoming. The shift is quiet. It does not arrive with applause or celebration. It arrives in the form of new standards. It shows up when you begin holding yourself to a higher level even when no one is watching. It reveals itself when you start doing what most won't, because you know your future demands it. If you're seeing these signs, you're no longer chasing money, you're becoming the kind of man money chases. And let me remind you, the man who is truly wealthy never leads with money. He leads with value, he leads with clarity, he leads with purpose, because he understands that wealth is not pursued, it is attracted. You attract wealth by becoming useful, by becoming reliable, by becoming excellent. Every time you increase your usefulness, your wealth potential multiplies. The world is full of people who want to be rich, but the world is built by people who are useful. Look at your habits now. If you're seeing these signs, it means your habits have begun to align with long-term gain rather than short-term gratification. You no longer eat just for pleasure, you eat for energy. You no longer sleep to escape, you rest to recover. You no longer scroll to pass time, you read to expand. These are not small things. These are indicators that your identity is shifting. And identity is the engine of wealth. When you change how you see yourself, you change what you allow. A poor man justifies bad habits. A rich man builds around discipline. Discipline is not a punishment, it is a privilege. Discipline protects your time. It protects your emotions. It protects your focus. Without it, nothing great can be sustained. With it, everything becomes possible. If your mornings are becoming more structured, your environment more intentional, your calendar more organized, it is no accident. It is the behavior of a man who is preparing for stewardship, not survival. You see, you can't carry wealth if you still think like a man trying to get by. You must begin to think like a man with legacy on his shoulders. The man with legacy doesn't waste time arguing. He doesn't chase cheap validation. He doesn't measure his worth by applause. He is grounded in principle. He understands that real wealth is not just about how much he earns. It's about how much he builds, how much he keeps, and how much he can pass on without the next generation having to start over. Another sign you're on the path to wealth. Your relationship with work has matured. You've stopped asking for easy. You've stopped looking for shortcuts. You've stopped idolizing passive income without first becoming actively valuable. You understand that leverage only works when value is present. You now view hard work as a sacred process, not something to escape, but something to master. You no longer see your effort as a grind, you see it as a gateway. Because every repetition, every focused task, every hour of deliberate action compounds into competence. And competence is currency. Wealthy men are masters of something, not everything, but something. They commit, they refine, they simplify, and in that simplicity, they find power. You are no longer distracted by trends. You're not jumping from one idea to the next. You've chosen your vehicle. You've chosen your mission. And now you're digging deep, building depth, because surface level effort produces surface level results. But depth creates dominion. Another sign you're walking the path. You've learned to regulate your emotions. Where you once reacted, now you respond. Where you once panicked, now you pause. Where you once internalized everything, now you investigate. You understand that emotional intelligence is not weakness, it is a weapon. It allows you to move strategically when others are driven by impulse. It allows you to make decisions based on principle, not pressure. And that difference, that internal strength is what makes you a man who can lead, a man who can build, a man who can multiply. And multiplication is the key, not just of money, but of self. When you begin thinking in terms of multiplying, Your time, your skill, your vision, your message, your mind has entered the realm of wealth, because wealthy minds don't just spend, they multiply. Poor minds only consume. They want the next thrill, the next fix, the next dopamine hit. Wealthy minds delay gratification in favor of multiplication. That's why you're studying instead of scrolling. That's why you're building systems instead of escaping stress. That's why you're investing your energy instead of draining it. You're starting to realize that every action you take is either an asset or a liability. Every habit either compounds for you or against you. And because you've seen this truth, you are beginning to make decisions from your future self, not your current feelings. This is the pivot that most never make. The moment when your vision becomes louder than your emotion, when your why outweighs your weakness, when you choose based on outcome, not comfort, that's not just growth, that's preparation for abundance. You are preparing now, not just with goals, but with structure. You've begun to track your inputs, you measure your energy, you audit your time, you track your spending, you track your behavior, not because you are obsessive, but because you are responsible. And responsibility is the foundation of freedom. The man who cannot be responsible cannot be rich. Because wealth will always flee a life of disorder, but wealth is drawn to discipline, to stewardship, to intentionality. Another sign you're on the path. Your self-talk has become stronger. You no longer beat yourself up for every mistake. You learn, you recalibrate, you speak life, you declare truth. You understand that you must lead yourself before you can lead anything else. And that leadership begins in the mirror. Every morning you choose the voice you follow. And now, you are choosing the voice of power. You are building yourself with language that empowers. That is not weakness, that is mastery. You no longer need hype. You've outgrown motivation without movement. You're no longer impressed by flashy lifestyles with no foundation. You respect consistency. You admire humility. You seek wisdom. You would rather be silent and successful than loud and empty. And that internal shift, that depth of character, is a magnet for lasting wealth. Let's talk about the unseen. If you're seeing these signs, you've likely become more sensitive to energy. You can feel when something is out of alignment. You can detect when a person's spirit doesn't match their words. You can sense when an opportunity isn't right, even if it looks good. That sensitivity is not weakness, it's discernment. It means your intuition is sharpening. And the wealthy man always trusts his gut, not out of emotion, but out of awareness. You are aware now, not paranoid, aware of your choices, of your patterns, of your blind spots. And that awareness gives you the power to adjust before the damage is done. That's what separates the man who keeps what he builds from the man who loses it. It's not intelligence, it's awareness. It's the humility to adapt, to ask better questions, to evolve when others become arrogant. If you are seeing this humility in yourself, you are on sacred ground. Because the path to wealth is sacred. It is not for everyone. It is not for the crowd, it is for the committed. The man who stays when it's hard, the man who decides when others delay, the man who sacrifices short-term approval for long-term abundance. That's you now. You don't just want more, you are becoming more. Your life may not reflect it fully yet. You may still be in the early stages. You may still be climbing, but inside you already know you are different now. Your mind is sharper. Your intentions are purer. Your behavior is bolder. You're no longer the same, and you're never going back. That is wealth. Not just having, becoming. And every sign you're seeing now is proof. You are becoming the kind of man who can handle wealth, manage wealth, multiply wealth, and pass on wealth, not just of money, but of mind. And that, my friend, is priceless. If you're still seeing the signs, and more importantly, if you're still living them, then let me tell you something few will say out loud. Wealth is no longer a possibility for you, it's an inevitability. Why? Because you've already become the kind of man wealth was designed to serve. You no longer need to chase riches like a beggar, hoping for a blessing. You've earned the right to expect prosperity not through entitlement but through alignment. Your thoughts, your decisions, your actions, and your standards now reflect abundance at the core. Look at the way you now treat your mornings, not as a rush of obligation, but as sacred ground. You rise with purpose, not panic. You prepare, not react. You lead your day instead of waiting to be led by it. And every day that begins in intention is a seed of wealth planted. Compound that intention over months, years, and decades, and no force in the world can stop what's coming to you. Wealth is not for the scattered, it flows to the deliberate. And you, my friend, have become a man of deliberate purpose. Even your goals have changed. Where once you chased status, now you pursue significance. Where once you wanted money to feel powerful, now you know power is the ability to be in control of yourself. You've discovered that real freedom isn't about buying more, it's about needing less. And from that posture you've stepped into mastery. Because the man who needs nothing is the most dangerous man alive. He cannot be manipulated, he cannot be distracted, he cannot be bought. And because of that, wealth is now drawn to him naturally. You've learned that the wealthiest people are not the ones who hoard, but the ones who create. You've stepped into the mindset of value creation. You don't ask, what can I get? You ask, what can I give that multiplies? This is what separates the wealthy from the hopeful. Hopeful people wish. Wealthy people serve. They understand that money follows value, and value flows from a refined mind and a sharpened skill set. You are sharpening now. Every day you think deeper. Every day you solve faster. Every day you speak with more clarity. That is the evidence of a man preparing for magnitude. Let's not forget the internal shift that precedes every financial breakthrough. Identity. If your identity has changed, your reality has already begun to change. You no longer say, I'm trying. You say, I'm becoming. You don't say, maybe one day. You say, it's already done, I'm catching up to it. You walk like it's done, you work like it's done, you plan like it's done. And that inner shift is what the world responds to. Energy doesn't lie. When your mind is made up, reality bends to match. Even in silence you are building. You no longer need constant feedback to know you're on track. You've developed the habit of showing up even when no one notices. You've divorced yourself from the need for approval. You've become your own accountability. And that self-respect, that integrity, that's what wealthy men are made of. Wealth without character is short-lived. But wealth built on identity, intention, and internal power, that kind of wealth outlasts generations. Let me tell you this. It is no longer a matter of if, it is a matter of when. The man you're becoming is inevitable. Because you no longer make decisions from your current limitations, you make them from your future self. You don't ask, what can I afford? You ask, what does the man I'm becoming choose? You've stopped budgeting for your fears. You've started investing in your faith. You've made every dollar a soldier, every task a message, every conversation an opportunity. And because of that, wealth has no choice but to enter. You now speak in full sentences. You communicate with conviction. You own your time. You protect your energy. You move with rhythm, not rush. You think ahead. You ask questions. You no longer wait for life to assign you value. You assign it to yourself. And when a man knows his value, the world responds in kind. You don't beg for worth, you walk in it. You've made peace with solitude. Where once you feared being alone, now you cherish it. Because solitude has become your workshop, your training ground, your vision board, your altar of refinement. The man who can sit in silence and build in the dark is the man who can handle abundance in the light. Most people fear silence because it forces them to face themselves. But you faced yourself and you didn't flinch. You grew, and that growth is priceless. You've stopped outsourcing your discipline. You've stopped making others responsible for your habits. You no longer need a reminder to do what you said you'd do. You honor your word even in private. And when your private behavior aligns with your public declaration, that is wealth. Because true wealth is congruence. No split personality, no double standard, one mind, one mission, one man. You've developed vision. Not the kind sold on posters, but the kind written into your spirit. You see your future before it's visible. You speak life into dry places. You build when there's no audience. You plant seeds when others are complaining about the weather. And because of that, you will reap what others only dream about. Not by luck, not by inheritance, but by law. The law of cause and effect. The law of belief. The law of responsibility. The law of mental clarity. If you are truly walking this path, there is one more sign that cannot be ignored. You've become impossible to unseat. You are no longer shaken by delay. You are no longer discouraged by rejection. You are no longer broken by setbacks. Why? Because you've trained your mind to interpret all pain as preparation. You've mastered the ability to extract profit from adversity. You are an alchemist now. You turn resistance into results, loss into leverage, delay into direction. You've made excellence your default. Not something you do when you feel like it, but who you are even when no one's looking. You've made integrity your compass. You've made purpose your currency. You no longer talk about goals, you talk about systems. Because systems produce, goals inspire, but systems build. And you, my friend, are building every single day. You're no longer chasing big wins, you're stacking small ones. Because you know now the compound effect of daily discipline will beat every flash-in-the-pan success story. You're not building for next week, you're building for your legacy. You're not here to impress, you're here to last. And that mindset, that long-game posture is what makes wealth inevitable. So I'll say it again. If you're seeing these signs, you're not on the wrong track. You're not late, you're not lost, you're being forged. And everything you're becoming now, the habits, the posture, the clarity, the confidence, these are not accidents. These are confirmations. Confirmations that you're walking in alignment with the man you were always meant to become. That man is already inside of you. He's the one who rises early, who studies instead of complains, who executes instead of hesitates, who speaks truth, lives truth, builds truth. He doesn't just wear success, he embodies it. And every day, that man is growing stronger, sharper, bolder, freer. You don't owe the world an explanation. You don't owe anyone proof. You owe yourself follow-through. You owe yourself consistency. You owe your future family the version of you who didn't give up when it got hard. You owe your calling a man who answered it without excuse. So stand tall. Walk firm. Keep building. The world may not notice today, but wealth has already taken notice, because the man you are now, disciplined, aligned, clear, and becoming, is the very man wealth was searching for all along.